This organization always has stepped up to support their community, and I'm most especially thrilled and proud of what this organization has done for kids with challenges and their families to help them find hope and to give them opportunities to thrive and live their best life. The Elks can do that.
I want to thank everybody that's here for the 70th birthday and the beginning of the anniversary year for the Washington Elks Therapy Program for Children. We have Rebecca, or Becky Gibson. Then we have Mathew Flementes. He is a graduate of the therapy program. Next to Mathew is his mother, Shelley. What's our main purpose in life? We want to get out there and find those kids that need help. It doesn't matter if they're downtown Seattle, downtown Tacoma, or on the far end of Eastern Washington in the sticks. It's getting to the kids and being able to provide the services that they need.
And I'm especially excited that I have Mathew and his mom, Shelley, here. I can say that it's been an interesting and fun run for us together to work on therapeutic interventions with Mathew and his mom, and including his family and his dad and his brother and his grandma. And I think maybe, Auntie's been around for a few sessions, and it's a family affair, which is pretty common for how our program runs. The best ways that we can be of service to our children and their journey is to help their families understand where they are in the journey, and then listen to the family's wishes around what they feel is the right next step for their child, or where they're experiencing challenges and difficulties. We were all on the same team for Mathew, really trying to help him live and grow and be the best version of Mathew that he could be. He has stepped up to the plate time and time again on so many levels. You started with the therapy program when you were pretty small.
That's correct.
What's your first memory about me coming to your house?
The first memory that I have of remembering of you coming to my house is my mom told me that someone new was coming into the house, and that kind of put me on edge of my seat here, and I wasn't sure how to react to that at the start of when we first met. But then when you kept coming, then I got more and more comfortable as the days went on from there.
Yeah, actually, your mom interviewed me before she ever let me come in the front door. She took me to lunch. She said, "What's the next step? How does this happen?" And I said, "Well, I'll come to your house. We'll fill out some paperwork." And she said, "How about I take you to lunch?" Right? So that was our first session. We had lunch. We talked about what it was. And then we came to your house, and unbeknownst to you at the time, I did an assessment. I looked at where you were and how you were doing things, and your mom and I had a conversation about what was important to her, and then we talked to you a little bit when you were little about what was important to you, and then we made a plan.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. And through the years, we did so many different things.
So I remember the first time my fingers were locking up, and we've been doing this finger locking drill, like where you just go from finger to finger in as you go back and forth like 5 to 10 times. And from there on, if you keep doing that, things just help your fingers grow stronger. And you also sometimes have to move pennies out of your hands and into another basket, which can also help your fingers get in stronger shape.
Right. One of my favorite stories about trying to think of the next best challenge for you with your hands and getting them to work the way you wanted them to work was I brought a knot tying kit. And I thought, wow, Mathew is this great boy. Tying knots is a cool thing for boys to learn. I'm going to bring this knot tying kit.
That was actually one of my favorite memories. I've always wanted to learn how to tie my shoe. And that was one of the greatest moments in my life. So I always had to ask for help. It made not just tying shoes easier, but just doing knots in general actually now helps me even more in my life.
There was a little bit of pushback. There were these little index cards that showed you how you were supposed to put this loop around that loop and pull it down and whatever. And it was kind of too big of a challenge. And so we looked at it together and you said, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this. And I said, okay, well, I bet you can't tie me to this chair I'm sitting in.
And then the next day, she comes, and things just were like starting to kind of click, but it was still a challenge inside the brain. So you gotta like take the challenge that's locked in your brain and go for it. If you don't go for the challenge, then how can you succeed in your own goals towards your life?
Well said, Matthew. Well said. We moved from knot tying. Do you remember we used to do all those connects activities with these little teeny tiny pieces and these booklets about how to build? We built all kinds of things. You built that cool roller coaster, and we built surfboards, and we built some cool cars we had those wheels on them. Constantly looking at the next challenge for him to do the problem solving piece cognitively as well as the fine motor piece. And then we did a lot of cooking together as you got even older. I still have your stuffed shells recipe. It's one of my favorites.
I'm glad to hear that. It is meant to be that popular. I actually have a new one that I'm about to start this summer. So I'm going to be building a Lego ATV in my own house as a puzzle.
You've also had a lot of other really awesome life experiences, like being involved in Special Olympics.
Yes, I have. I have played basketball, track, soccer, football, bowling, volleyball, even baseball. I have played almost every sport, and I've played football. You name the sport, I have almost played them all.
What was your most recent experience with Special Olympics?
Special Olympics has given me a new thing to look towards. It has given me a whole new goal to achieve now. There is a record in a record book that I am planning on breaking in a couple of days. So now I kind of want to step up my A game in Special Olympics for the most gold medals that possibly can be awarded to a person and go into a record book one day. And also, I am the only person who has won the pentathlon 2 times in a row in 2 years. So the pentathlon is 5 events in one day. The 100-meter dash, high jump, long jump, triple jump, and the 800-meter dash along with the shot put.
And you had 2 other competitors. You guys all worked really hard at doing your personal best, and you all really supported each other.
Yes, so having 2 other opponents go against you, even though that you might be faster in some of the events, it's still good to push yourself to a certain limit that can help you improve your game and step up to the next level and rise to the next challenge.
I hear you're also a movie star. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
So I am actually a 3-time movie star now because I have just been shot in my 3rd movie. So I am in 2 movies. One movie is actually out on Amazon Prime right now that's called The Beast of Harmony Falls. We have actually been doing movies with one of my friends who's a community guide of mine called Dave Aslan. He has a series of books, about 5 or 6 books that he wants to turn into movies. His series has actually been giving me another goal to look towards. It has to be filmed in all 5 to 6 books of his movies.
Yeah, so in Kelso Longview in October, the end of October, will be the movie premiere where Matthew will walk the red carpet. So that's pretty cool. So Matthew, tell me now, what's going on in your life in terms of volunteer and work opportunities?
So I did have a job at the Willapa Elementary School down in Raymond, Washington at Willapa. But now, since I got 2 volunteer jobs in the same town, so I now work at Pennywise and I work at a horse sanctuary for a guy named Paul. And he needs a volunteer that he can trust there, be able to go there. Even on days that he may not be there, he needs someone reliable who can help feed his animals, and take care of him for him. Even when he's not around, or my job coaching around, and she's got to cancel that day, I can take care of it even when there's no one else there. I can always make sure that the animals are taken care of for the whole day.
Nice. Cool. All right. I do want to say to you that I really have always appreciated how you remind me how to be a better therapist. For example, there's another young man that lives in your community that I'm working with who is also now working on shoe tying. And so Mathew has helped me remember all the different ways we approach shoe tying for him. And he's coached me on how to present that to this next young man.
That is correct. And actually, some of that shoe tying evidence that she just told you about, that didn't really come from her. Part of that shoe tying equipment came from my nurse from the high school, who took me from a 6th grader clear the way through a super senior. She has helped me through many years of my life, just as well as my mom has been there to support me from as a Viking to a Grays Harbor Blackhawk to where I am now.
Yes, we owe Nurse Kim a great tribute for all the ways she helped you grow. And she was the one with the bunny mantra for the shoe tying that really resonated with you. Nurse Kim knocked it out of the park on that one. Okay, so let's slide this down for your mom to have a chance. And Shelly, tell your story. I'm not going to interview you.
Well, first of all, as I've said, every time I start, the first thing that is the most important to me is that every one of you, every single person in this room, know how grateful and how thankful I am to you. I'm going to try to get through this story without crying. I don't usually do that. So Mathew was born in 2000, and he was born neurotypical, and everything was cranking along. And at 2 years old, both of my boys caught the flu. And why Mathew's that virus got into his spinal cord and went up to his brain and caused viral meningitis and encephalitis, we don't know. In 27 days, our life changed completely. I went from having a neurotypical child to a situation where the doctors said, your son is not coming home. You need to make funeral arrangements. We're 21 years past that, and I can tell you Mathew has defied all odds time and time again. But he went from a boy who could talk in full sentences and ride a bicycle without training wheels to a boy who didn't even know who I was. He sustained brain damage from the viral meningitis. The crazy thing about that is you don't know what part of the brain is damaged. You don't know what you're going to face. So it's kind of like maybe being in the military and they tell you to walk through a landmine field. You don't know when you're going to hit one. So Mathew has intractable epilepsy, and he has really bad seizures. So our life got turned upside down, and we didn't know where to look for help. And I don't remember exactly who told me. The Elks have this therapy program. And we live in a very small town, Raymond, Washington, out on the coast. So getting Mathew to therapy, even to Olympia, is an hour and a half. Most of his doctors are in Seattle, so 2.5 hours if we don't hit traffic. It's very costly, and it's just really hard to do. And in walked Becky into our life. All of a sudden, I felt like I went from a very dark room that had no light to a very illuminated room that had hope. That's something I hadn't had, because the boy that you see sitting here today is an amazing result of what you guys have given for 70 years. When he does this, he couldn't do this. When he would take coins out of his hand and push them into my hand, like Becky had taught him, we spent hours and hours doing that. We made it a game for him, and he thought it was great. But I knew it wasn't a game, and I knew how important that was. And every single time he couldn't do it, it breaks your heart. But perseverance and the fact that Becky never gave up. When it didn't work, we found other ways to do it. He's a huge example of what your program does. and you never give up. You come every single week, and it doesn't cost our families anything. It brings hope. It brings a family to us. It brings years and years of knowledge that we don't have. I'm a very good accountant, but I couldn't tell you how to take care of my child. I didn't even know. I had no clue how to help my own child. And as his mother, that's a very horrible feeling. The one thing at the end of the journey, because now he's aged out, I want you to know, every one of you, that you made a difference. You made a huge difference. You made a difference in Matthew's life, but you made a difference in my son Seth, in my life, in my parents' life, in my community's life. Matthew won the pentathlon this last weekend, and I posted it on Facebook. And if anybody wants to go look at Shelley Flametis' Facebook page, you'll see the picture. And you'll also see 164 people who liked it or loved it, and you'll see 84 comments, and I only have like 400 friends. So that's a huge percentage of people who stopped, looked at that picture, and took the time to actually write something. And they got to do that because each one of you has been given to this program for 70 years. My son wouldn't have gotten to do that. And that is simply amazing. That is the most amazing thing that you could possibly do. And there are people out there just like me that you have helped. Tons and tons of families. I know some of those families. I know a little girl in Raymond. She was so scared. She's autistic, and she was just so scared of her own shadow. I do a Christmas program at the county every year, and this little girl couldn't come. She was scared to death to come. But Becky worked with her for a couple years, and I don't know exactly what they did and everything. But a couple years later, that little girl crawled up on my lap, and she had her picture taken with me. She was scared of Santa still, but she crawled up on my lap, and we had our picture taken. And that little girl today is thriving. Again, that's because of you. And I see that every day in my community. I live in a very small community, so I get to see those people. I get to see those success stories. So, thank you. But I look forward to this continuing another 70 years and helping people that are in my situation where you didn't ask for this, you didn't cause this, you don't know why it happened to you, but it did. And you don't know where to turn. So you turn to the Elks Therapy Program, and these amazing people show up your house every single week. And when you're down and out, you call them on the phone and you're like, Becky, I don't know what to do. And she listens to you, and she lifts you up. And she's become family now. I'll never let her go. She's not just yours anymore. She's ours too. So thank you.
It's been a great run, Shelley. I'm so thankful that our paths crossed. I'm so thankful that the Elks have this program available to help you and Matthew on your journey. And thousands and thousands of families have had this support through 70 years of service. And there have been some amazing therapists who have worked for this program. I would love to introduce you to a couple down at the end of the table. So Lila Zander works for us in the Spokane area. She drives over 2,000 miles every month. When I check your report, it tells me, like 2,500 this month. Okay, Lila, she runs from Spokane almost all the way to Canada and back. She came out here from the East Coast a long time ago, and she had told her mom she'd be back in 5 years. Well, we're fortunate that Lila, almost 20 years later, is still here with us. So let Lila talk a little bit about her journey.
This is so humbling being here and seeing so many faces that I have seen for so many years. I am blessed to work for the therapy program, and it's just humbling being up here. You've all changed my life, because if I even thought of changing a job, I just couldn't, because I know what we do, what our therapy program does for the communities. It's about connection and connections in the people's environment, in the family's environment that we get to go to, and we get to support them in their location where they live every day. And it's a wonderful thing, the way that we can do our job we're all a little different, and each family, each child needs a little something. But I guess when I go from house to house, you connect with people differently. Well, there's this one new little boy that I have, and he's 3 years old. And the mom's like, he's not going to let you near him. And I'm like, okay. So I just kind of stayed, but I started singing. I had that kid in my lap within 10 minutes, but I have to sing for 45 minutes straight. So I kind of feel bad for the family for that. Just thank you so much for letting me do this job and supporting all the miles that I've driven and all the people's homes that I have gone into. Oh, my child, I go to my 6-year-old this morning, and I go, Crosby, why do you think I do this job every day? Mom, you like to make kids happy, so you just go to their homes to make them happy. And I'm like, oh, okay, that sums it up. That's why I do my job.
Hi, I'm Steph, and I'm a new therapist to the program. I've been here, actually this week is my year anniversary. I'm coming from a pediatric background. I worked in an outpatient clinic setting, pediatric clinic setting for almost 10 years. And so this job feels like a huge blessing and a very big gift to me. I think some of you in here work in medical settings, you know what they're like. It's about serving the clients, and it's also about that bottom line, like getting the money in, making sure you're signing your notes in on time, you're, crossing your T's and dotting your I's on time, right? I feel like I get to serve my clients in their homes. I didn't even know about this program, and it kind of fell in my lap, and it just feel like it all worked out for the best. And I have an amazing supervisor, amazing people on my team. I can call them up if I need support on something. I really want you all to feel proud for all the work that you do to support this program, because it is an amazing gift. It truly is. There's a couple kids on my caseload that they went to an outpatient clinic setting, and their insurance declined services for them because their scores didn't meet their criteria. And these clients really needed therapy. And I have a couple of those kids on my caseload. I get to decide that. I don't have to go through the middleman. I get to work with my family, see what makes the most sense for us moving forward. It's just been a true joy and a really big gift, and I'm really, really happy to be here. So thank you. So one of the great ways I get to support my families is that I can go to specialty appointments. I was never allowed to do that in my other job because it wasn't billable. I currently have a client on my caseload that has pretty severe hand contractures. She had a stroke when she was an infant, and her mom called me. She's a teenager, so she didn't entirely want me there. And so it kind of took some time to build rapport. And I also didn't know, I'm a generalist. I'm a general OT. I'm not a hand specialist. And so we were able, as the family and the primary care provider, we were able to get her to Shriners to see a upper extremity specialist. I was able to drive to Portland and be a part of one of those sessions, and feel more comfortable in my skill set moving forward to support her in a safe way, so I wouldn't, further damage her joints in her fingers. And she also got specialty splints for her knuckles, like her joints. And then I was also able to go to another appointment at Shriners and meet the hand surgeon and ask some good questions so that I felt comfortable moving forward. I would have never been able to do that in my last job. You know how teens are, they kind of want things quick and easy, So she agreed to do the exercises. We were doing some range of motion, some hand strengthening, like grip strengthening. Weight bearing is really important. She could not do wall push-ups. She's now doing 17 wall push-ups. It's pretty awesome. She's not doing it every day. She's doing it 3 days a week. And you know what? She's seeing a difference. And her mom and I were seeing a difference pretty early on. And she was like, no, I'm not really seeing a difference. And she was kind of like pouty. And now she's like opening up, she's talking to me, she's seeing a difference in her strength and her range of motion, and she's more willing to try different exercises even on her own. The other story that I want to share. I was going through an old family album, and these are like black and white photos from my mom's side of the family. So my great grandparents, Frida Waters, they lived in California and actually started the first hospital there near Santa Cruz. And there's a picture that I came across of several gentlemen. One was on a donkey. They're all dressed in suits. They have like those stylish hats. I want to say probably from the 1930s, something from the 1930s. And there's a flag that says Santa Cruz. And underneath the picture, it says Elks Convention. Oh my goodness. So I feel like I'm home, right? It's in my family, it's in my blood, and I've got a picture to verify that. So I'm thrilled.
I love that story. Steph texted me this picture. I was in a store that will remain nameless, but you probably all go there every week looking for a birthday card for a friend. And this photo pops up of these gentlemen. It's this guy on a donkey and Santa. And I was like, what is this? And then I read her message and she's like, I just found this in my family's photo album from way back when, right? And I said, Steph, it was destiny. You were meant to come home to the Elks. I'm so glad you found us, right? So Steve Scholes is secretary of the State Association and the manager of the therapy program.
One of the points of that I take away from this, and what I've always known as being a supporter of the program for all my life, kind of the story that just went over there is that there's a picture of me when I was probably about 3 years old, sitting on one of the merry-go-round horses that you put nickels into to ride. And that was one of the fundraisers for the therapy program, because my father was huge in elkdom. We get to do this at no cost to the families. And the ability to do these services is because of this program and your support and the support going forward. 70 years. Think of the thousands of hours of services that we give away every year based on that many therapists on board and the amount of miles. I'm very proud to be a part of it. And I'm going to bring Rob Dahl up and give him a couple minutes to talk about a birthday celebration that we're going to have. Rob, go ahead and come on up.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Is there anybody in this room that's not like super excited and proud of what we do with this program? Did everybody realize we're 70 years old? I mean, that's a huge accomplishment, especially looking back at the history and the bumps and trials and so forth that programs like ours have. Every state, as you know, has a major project. I honestly don't feel that there's any project in all of Elkdom that has changed and affected as many lives as our Elks Therapy Program for Children. We're going to celebrate on Saturday night, October 19th, in Kelso Longview, following the quarterly meetings. We're going to be having a celebration gala to support and celebrate the therapy program. It's a formal dinner. Tickets are $75 a piece. With silent auction, live auction, dinner, great program with some of our kids in the program as well as graduates. And we discovered something we didn't know in our own community, a retired school teacher who has cerebral palsy, who is one of the most original graduates of the program from way back when, who's going to be there to talk about his experience. Great guy. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We really want y'all to come down and join us. Again, find any of the therapy trustees. If you know who they are, reach out to the folks in your lodge. Online registration, really simple as you do. We'd love to see you there. So thank you so much.
This is a legacy program. I don't know in 1954 when it all began that the leadership at that time knew that we would be sitting here 70 years later in the place that we are, doing the mission and the work of the program as they saw it way back then. And this program has had always a close connection with Children's Hospital and the leadership at Children's Hospital. And part of what happened, as I understand, back in the day, there was a request from Grand Lodge that states designate a state major project and the Elks had been instrumental in connectivity with Children's Hospital. And so leadership from our organization went there and said, we've been tasked by Grand Lodge to create a state major project that the Elks will support moving forward. And we'd like that to have something to do with children. And we're wondering, from your experience at Children's Hospital, what you think might be most helpful for our communities. And so the leadership there said, basically, that when we have children here, 70 years ago, we have children here at Children's Hospital, we know that they are getting the best care that's available because that's their mission. And when we send them home, we don't know what happens next. So if you all could step up to a more rehab kind of model where you could go to homes and see children and provide that support for them, that would be a great gift to your communities and to the kids across the state of Washington. And so that's really kind of, I think, how the whole idea came together. Now you have to remember, back in 1954, I believe that was the year that the Salk vaccine was finally created for polio, right? There have been people in this audience that are post-polio survivors. And so back in the day, many of the children who needed help were often children who had physical challenges due to polio, due to prematurity, due to our lack of medical knowledge about how to help those preemie babies move forward in life without having major disabilities. I'm excited to say, as a occupational therapist and someone who's been trained to do this work, that technology has allowed services for those preemie babies to improve so greatly that today there are kids who are born with the same challenges or the same history that a kid 50 years ago was born with. And now we can bring them through almost fully unscathed to have a really, really productive life. And so while the early days of the Elks Therapy Program were highly focused on kids with cerebral palsy, some kids with Down syndrome, some kids with, back then we didn't even understand the whole DNA process of the body and the chromosomes and how all that stuff lined up. We didn't even know exactly what this child had, except we could tell from how they were functioning that they were behind and they needed help. Today, you can sequence those genetic codes and they've got a million more versions of descriptions, and we are discovering every year more versions of different ways that the DNA gets sequenced and creates different kinds of challenges for kids and families. And they're keeping data on all that information. And at the same time, the children with needs are often different than they were 70 years ago. So more and more, we're seeing children with challenges regarding sensory issues and sensory processing issues. We're seeing more and more children who are autistic. And we're identifying adults who are autistic who were never diagnosed as autistic. So that's an interesting and curious thing to me, that over time, I hope I live long enough to figure out why there's so much autism in the world and how it happens and what we can do, just as we've done to alleviate the challenge for the preemie babies back in the day, that we can bring them through today to not have those kinds of complications. I hope we're able to do that for the kids on the spectrum. And this program has ridden all of those waves. We have not said, oh, we're only going to see these kids or we're only going to see those kids. Always, I say to my staff, I want you working in your skill sets with the information and knowledge and training you have. If you have a referral for a child who has a concern and an issue that you don't feel confident treating, then we need to find somebody else who can do that, right? We are all generalists as Elks therapists. We pick up as many different diagnoses and issues as we can. And at the same time, we need to be sure that we're using the skills and knowledge base that we have to move forward with the services that we provide to children. Sometimes families call us and say, my child has a 1 in 5 million diagnosis. I'm like, what is it? And they tell me, and I say, oh my gosh, I've never even heard of that. And the mom says, no problem. My daughter has this, and I know about as much about it as everybody else because I'm that kind of mom, right? So I say, well, what are the challenges for your daughter? Like, what is she able to do, and where does she need help? And so we go through this list, and we find out that she has issues with movement, she has issues with feeding, she has issues with both fine motor movement and gross motor movement, and she's a really bright little girl. And so I say to the mom, I don't know anything about Pompe syndrome. Never had a kid on my caseload before, never will have a kid on my caseload again, based on the statistics that this diagnosis pops up. And I know something about fine motor. I know something about gross motor. I know something about feeding. Let me start. Let me come to your house. Let's see what we can do and see how far we can go. And if I'm not enough to meet your need, well, I'll help you find the next right spot. Right. So I'm excited that we were able to help this young family, this young mother and her husband with this little girl. It was a military family, so they moved out of the area in a reasonable amount of time with a transfer out to another duty station for Dad. And in that window of time, this is the little girl that we built the magic little mobility device for out of a foam off-the-shelf bumbo seat, these little positioning devices for kids that we put on a cutting board and put casters on it and added 12-inch wheels to the side. George Pritchard helped build this thing. The mom found it and said, can you build this? And I said, no, but I know an elk who could do this, right? We built this device for her. We pop her in it, and she takes off. By the end of the day, she's doing loops around their living room, dining room space, only pausing to dabble in the dog food kibble and the water bowl, right? So from there, we said, well, she was about to turn 3, and she was about to outgrow this little infant seat that we'd made for her. And so the military insurance said, we don't do wheelchairs for 3-year-olds. They do not have the ability to operate those devices. And I said, okay, what if I show you a video of this little girl in the device we created for her? And so Mom and I made this video. She sent it to the insurance company, and they said, pretty amazing. And so as she turned 3 and outgrew the device that we created for her, she segued into that wheelchair like a rock star, right? She already knew, you grab the wheels on the side and you go, right? So, things like that, where other people of power say, oh no, we don't do that. The Elks can do that, right? We find ways to step up to the challenge, to meet kids where they are. I made an ask in the meeting the other day about, I need somebody who can build me something, right? Today, I already have the business card of the elk who's going to step up and build this thing that this therapist called me about last week and said, I need something that will help this kiddo on my caseload be able to stand at the kitchen sink and help wash dishes and work at the kitchen counter with his mom. And he's just not tall enough to do it. And so, we've got somebody who's going to do that for us. This organization always has stepped up to support their community, not only with the therapy program, but across the board. I'm so proud of what this organization does holistically, and I'm most especially thrilled and proud of what this organization has done for kids with challenges and their families, to help them close the gap, to help them find hope, to help them be part of their community, and to give them opportunities to thrive and live their best life.
I'd just like to hear from Mathew, now that he's aging out of the program, where he's going in life from here.
So I am actually looking forward to a fall job now, since the school has made a really bad decision down in Willapa to let me go. So now I am looking forward to, a new job that will, step up and really challenge me with all the strengths that the Elks have given me now. And with all that, I mean, I want to experience harder work and just, challenge myself a bit more and push a bit harder myself and just get better with every step that I take and go from there.
Thank you.
Awesome. And Matthew is not afraid of hard work and heavy work. He's a wood splitter. He loves getting dirty. So mucking those horse stalls, right? I'm like, you do that part? He's like, yeah, I really like the part. He volunteered at the fish hatchery where, those fish make really slimy things happen in those ponds at those hatcheries. And he was all over that opportunity. So if you know anybody in the Raymond area who is looking for a hard worker, we got your guy right here. And again, since the Willapa Elementary School made a bad decision and decided to let him go, he's in the market for a new opportunity. And what's true, and I will say this in each of your communities as well, there are kids like Mathew who are needing those opportunities. So if you're in a position where you can help provide that opportunity, whether it's full-time employment, part-time employment, supported employment, a volunteer opportunity for them, these young people have worked hard and they want to be part of it, and they want to feel valued by their community. And so that's another way as good people that you can help step up and offer that opportunity for them. Wouldn't that be great?
Yes.
Though I actually think secretly your mother is going to create your own company for you. And I can't wait. She's too busy working full time to do that right now, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be like, oh, you already have a business card with your name on it.
I do.
Yeah. He does good works in his community all the time. And that's a great opportunity for him. Other questions? I think Lila was trying to tell me a minute ago to remind everybody that we serve kids from birth to the age of 21.
Well, so I wanted to say that.
Well, you say it, Lila.
I just had this conversation because I was working with a mom. I've seen this kid since he was like 6 weeks old for OT, but for speech, he had at 2.5, because before 3, he had to change speech therapists. Then when he turned 5, he had to change speech therapists again, where what's wonderful about our program is we get to meet the family, we get to see how we can help, but then we can not just help for that session, for that month, for that year, but we can follow through, and we can go with the goals, and our goals will, add on and get different, but we can work with that family, what their need is right then. So that's an amazing thing, because when you have insurance and you have to, there's so many rules you have to abide, and we don't really have to abide all those rules. So that's really nice, and it's wonderful for the kids. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, it gives us the flexibility to do what's needed in the eyes of that family and not be beholden to a third-party payer who says, nope, your child has Down syndrome. Well, you'll get 6 sessions of therapy this year, right? So, these kids have challenges that aren't fixed in 6 sessions, and your program allows us to stay with them and help with those things. There's a constant ringing of your phone or email in your inbox of a new referral. So oftentimes it's the next kids coming in that create the opportunity for turnover. Many of these children will need help for their whole lives and will be part of it for part of their lives, right? Depending on our ability to meet those needs. And it's a constant journey as a therapist to manage that caseload. And in this program, the way it's set up, the therapist has that responsibility. And sometimes that can feel pretty challenging and overwhelming for them. And that's when I get to wear my therapy supervisor hat and support them in helping them sort out, how do we do this? How do I prioritize which kiddo stays on my therapy caseload and which one I'm moving off and why, and how do I have that conversation with that family. I remember as a young Elks therapist, I said to my next door neighbor lady who was a marriage and family counselor by training. She was a great neighbor to have when I was a baby Elks therapist. I said, yeah, this is so hard. I feel like I'm playing therapy God, like I'm the one, this feels like a lot of responsibility for me to be responsible for. And yet, it's the evolution. It's the process that happens. We are a cog in the wheel for therapy services for kids across the state of Washington. We're not the only game in town. Our big mission is to try to be sure we're reaching out and connecting with the kids who live in very remote areas, who have to travel. For Mathew to get to a therapy center, it was a half a day missing work for Shelley or her husband to be able to get him there and back. And then that much of him missing school to do it, right? Where there was a clear rationale why we were going to show up for him in this journey. And for other kids, it's, every decision is done on a case-by-case basis. And so it just keeps happening. And sometimes for families who do have insurance, they get 20 visits to cover occupational, physical, and speech therapy for their child for the year. Well, guess what? If you saw a therapist every week or even every other week, you would blow through those visits pretty quickly. If you needed all 3 disciplines, and some kids do, you would blow through those visits even faster. So we can offload the occupational therapy version of it or the physical therapy version, depending on which therapist we have living in the unit, and they can use the funds they have to access the other pieces that they need. So, and if they move around the state, we're able to say, oh, we have a therapist who's over there and that. Oh, you're moving to Vancouver? Let me connect you with Steph. Oh, you're going to Spokane? Let me line you up with Lila, right? So that's another flexibility piece that we are able to offer, as well as the opportunity to really support kids in the foster care system. So as those kids have needs, many of us have sojourned many years with foster families who have a revolving door of kids that are coming in, and they know how to find us. And it's great because we teach them things in the journey with one child, and then the next child that comes in might have similar issues, and they're able to just like say, remember when Billy was here? We did this. Would this work for Johnny? Yes. And we can add these layers to it. So they're really great families to help out. And I'm really proud of the Elks for really stepping up for the kids that are in the foster care system, because we've done that really consistently for many, many years. So I could talk about this program forever, but I'm going to stop. Shelley wants to say one more thing.
I know you've all been sitting here, but I just want to say, because I understand each one of you is from a different lodge, and it is so important that everybody know this. So if you ever need Mathew or I to come to your lodge, and we've been to a few, we've been bowling. In fact, we were just in Forks a couple weeks ago bowling. So if you ever need us to come because they just need to see an example of how fantastic they are, we will definitely come. All you got to do is get in touch with Becky, and we drive all over.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you, Shelley. And, we have to understand that not every family has the capacity to drive all over or the willingness to put themselves in the spotlight as Shelley and Mathew have done for us. So I'm really appreciative of their willingness to give back to the program by helping us share a story and share a family experience. Thank you so much for your support of the program. We'll see you all at the gala. Other people of power say, oh no, we don't do that. The Elks can do that.